Hey, Graham. Happy to have you today. You are a product operation consultant, top LinkedIn voice, by the way. I don't know. You will tell us about that as well. From the UK, and today we are here to talk about product operation. Get a look back at your career and how you came there, and how do you help today companies as a consultant.
Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to chatting with you.
So just to get us started, Graham, maybe you can, tell us a bit about your background, your experience. Did you come from product management or from other roles? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I was a product manager for 10, 12 years before product operations. I've been in technology my entire career in one form or another. Technology has always been very interesting to me. Moved into product management very organically. Learned it all from the ground up, from nothing, no mentorship, just literally had to learn it on the job. Up through the ranks for over a number of years into senior positions, into leadership positions, leading small and medium-sized teams. And then about 3 years ago, kind of around 2021, there was a need at the business I was at to kind of have we didn't know it was called this at the time, but have a product operations function to help improve the craft of the product managers that we had, the product management function that we had, and interestingly, its interaction with the wider business and the wider business's interaction with that product function as well. I called it product operations, didn't know actually that was already a thing at the time. I actually Googled it and went, no, actually, that actually fits quite well. I'm quite happy with that name. And kind of went from there. So over the course of the past 3 years have built product operations as a function in several businesses now, and also consulted with several other businesses and advised them on kind of their particularly their building from nothing, building from scratch, that product operations function as well. And it's absolutely what I do. I consider it what I'm actually best at in that product world. I'm a very organized person. I'm a list man. I use lists. I use all those sorts of things. And actually, that's the bit that I now get the biggest kick out of, is helping those teams be as good as they can be. I've been there and done that with product management, launching great products. I'm very happy now, at this stage of my career, to let others have that and let me just help support them, make them as good as they can possibly be.
You're saying that your transition to product operation role was as organic as your entrance as a product management role. Like, this was just natural because you were already improving, like fixing problem as a product manager, and you went fixing problem for product managers as a product operation, I guess.
Absolutely. For product operations, your product is product management as a function, as the teams. We operate in very, very similar ways, and there's a lot of advantages to operating much like a product team, as well, as we're helping to improve that craft, improve the way that the function works within a business, what the processes look like, how we use data, and how we interact with that wider business as well. It's a lot about communication, interaction, collaboration. Which in many businesses quite often kind of either overlooked or just assumed for it to be there, and it should be good very naturally. There's very little in the way of implicit directive, implicit kind of structure behind many of those things.
That's interesting. So you're saying that companies overall think that product operation is about system, but you're saying it's more about people.
Absolutely, it is absolutely about people, and it's very much also about almost an element of psychology behind how people work. We do change. There is a large element of change management as part of what we do as well. It's not just making the changes, but supporting those changes as they roll out across the tech side of the business and also the wider business as well, even external to the business in some respects. So we need to be very aware of people, those individuals, how they react to change, how they deal with change, how we can make that change as seamless as possible for most people, and also then deal with people that will react very differently. We need to understand those people. We need to understand almost their psychological makeup to a little bit, to understand how we best approach them. Everybody is different, and we would never dream to say that everybody has to react the same. What our role is, as much as anything, is understanding how they will react to those very inorganic changes that we need to look at making.
Awesome. So tell us a bit, what are the most common challenges, goals that lead clients to seek your expertise in product operations today?
So product operations as a function, is already there in most businesses. If you're building software, you're already doing product operations in terms of the things that we typically, as people, we will look at. A lot of it is about using data. A lot of it is about communicating. A lot of it is about how we, go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 in any sort of process. And we look at these things and we want to say, well, how can they be improved? We look at these and say, is there efficiencies that we can make? We can put automation in place. We can just reduce down the number of steps. We might just augment the way that these tasks are done, who is taking care of those tasks, or in what order these tasks are done, just to generally make them as efficient as possible. So, as part of this, we are very interested, again, in the way that the businesses are set up, the way that businesses operate. Every business is different. Every business absolutely is different. There's no blueprint to this. It's not like implementing agile and making every business kind of follow that same way of working. We want to be saying, how is this business set up, and how can we make that business better in the way that it's set up at the moment? How do we make what you're doing already as good as it possibly can be? We're not looking to come in and make wholesale changes necessarily, at least without kind of a lot of planning, a lot of buying from kind of senior leadership. Okay, if we do need to make a significant change to the way that product management is working, okay, we can do that. But how do we do that as a team? It's certainly not one individual coming in and making these changes. Many people do look at product operations and are considering the need of product operations and thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? Where am I failing here? There are gaps that have appeared. How have I failed on doing this as a product leader? No, not at all. Product operations is best suited for are those that have moved from startup to kind of early stage or mid stage scale up sort of side. Maybe have gone through a couple of rounds of investment. They've brought a lot of people in over a quick period of time. There's lots of things that have happened. There's a lot of disjointedness. There's lots of different ways of thinking. And so what product operations will do, align all of this. This has happened very naturally. This is not the fault of product leadership. In the olden days, we didn't have product operations. We tried to do it all ourselves. Always sat on the side of our desk, never really being touched. Now somebody's coming in and actually taking a real focus on this, and it gives product leadership that space to do the things that we really need them to be doing. Dealing with the board, dealing with the C-suite team, dealing with the vision and the strategy, dealing with line management of the team. But that's all full-time stuff in itself. Now we want to roll out new ways of working, improving those ways of working. It needs full-time hand on it, and again, that's not a failure. That's recognizing that we want to do better and actually having the right resources in place to help us do that and putting our best efforts into those right individuals, those right positions.
Love it. So you're saying the most common moment you see that need for product operation and that need for separation is when evolution kicks in and big growth is happening from one way to another. Lots of changes, and the goal is to basically bring coherence to everything that happened and help product people there keep focus on the other things they must keep doing while you come in to help them structurate something that grew a bit organically and a bit too widely, right?
There are lots of different opinions, you know, about when product operations, you know, is most valuable. It's absolutely not in startup, you know, or very rarely in kind of small scale startup. No one would, you know, imagine that product operations would be your first product hire, or your second, or your third, or even probably your 10th. And every business will be different, you know. It's about when you start to notice that there is that incoherency. There is a lack of collaboration, perhaps. There's difficulty in communication. We're not using data well. Different teams are operating kind of different flavors of agile, different flavors of how they're doing their documentation, things like that. There's just general untidiness. That's a good time to start thinking about kind of product operations. And you touched on kind of an absolutely great point now. If we imagine kind of the, you know, the traditional product team, you know, as being this a wheel, and then product management sits at the center as the function, and at the end of those spokes are the individuals and the different teams around the business. Those people at the pointy end of that spoke, you know, these are the individual contributors. They are the people on the ground that are doing the real work. Even product managers, you know, they are the ones that are doing the job. We've got the engineers, the designers, they're actually producing assets. Product operations then sits kind of at the center of that a little bit to kind of help those things happen, those people, and allow them to focus on doing that pointy end stuff, that stuff that needs actually producing assets. We let them focus on the things that we really hire them to do. We let them focus on delivering value to the business, to our customers, earning revenue. Salespeople, what do we really want salespeople to be doing? We want them to be selling. We want them to be getting income. We don't necessarily want them to be spending lots of time thinking about, okay, how could we be operating better? I mean, yes, we would, but they don't have the time. We push everybody in business these days to just be deliver, deliver, deliver. To the point whereby actually we are, in many businesses, we're like, look, we don't worry about how it happens under the hood, just keep delivering. And everybody at those pointy ends are just doing what they need to deliver all the time. And we're in a situation now where that engine is so cranky, it's so unoiled, it's so ungreased that, you know, things are starting to grind to halt. Gaps are being found. There's inconsistency, there's a lack of communication because everyone is so driven and focused on what they're needing to do at that pointy end. So again, product operations can help with that process and get the wheels moving again.
It's a really support line, basically, for the rest of the business, and particularly the product team. This is what I'm hearing, bringing efficiency and consistency to the rest of the company. We love it. Could you describe a recent, you know, product operation project that you had a really big impact on the efficiency and consistency you just touched now?
Cobalt, American-based cybersecurity company, head of product operations, and there a huge focus of my time was on kind of this communication collaboration to not only help the business in terms of its in communication from the product teams and function. Some of the best work that I felt that I did there was actually working with the sales team and the commercial teams, working with other parts of the business to get them to kind of appreciate the information that was coming out, to not blurting out everything that we have done on a big long update, lots of bits and pieces. We fixed these bugs, we did this technical piece, we did these features, we've got loads of pretty pictures. But actually, what do they need? What do they care about? They care about what can we sell. Marketing teams care about what can we market? How can we best position this product for the market? This stuff is important, of course it is. It's important for the right people to know. But it's not important for everybody. Tailoring those communications so that they are valid for the people that are reading it, and there is a difference there. A big part of this as well was also structuring this in a way that really made a lot of sense to people that were reading, that were consuming this information. A framework that I developed was every communication that was about the product that was, and why is this awesome? 3 very simple steps. It puts the context absolutely in what this particular update, this particular feature was all about that we've done. Why do we bother doing it? What have we done so that people can use this information? And also, why is it awesome? What's the value that we're giving here, either to us internally or to those end users? And that's so super important, because salespeople, they're delivering, they're going out, they're selling our product. They don't necessarily need to understand everything that we have done, all the reasons behind it. What we can deliver to them is a soundbite, is a phrase, a sentence, a paragraph that actually they could almost go and use verbatim to enhance their self-practice of talking about what we have done. What is this big new feature that we have delivered? And so the curation of that particular piece of wording is so important, because in truth, people don't have the time anymore to deeply understand and sit there and work and understand the products that we have got, how every part of it absolutely works in its entirety, what all these updates are about, become masters of the products. They're not. Most product managers aren't even that in modern day. They focus on a particular area. So what we need to be giving them is enough information for them to do their job, and let them get on and do their job. And this is the essence of almost a evolution in the thinking of internal communications within businesses, in my opinion, is we're not making sure everybody knows everything all of the time. Actually, what we want to be doing is tailoring the information so that people only have the information that they need to do their job. In the facilitation of selling products, marketing products, things like that, supporting products as well. What do they actually need to know? What do they care about? Now, this is a big part of efficiency as well. Again, we're not bombarding people with lots of information all of the time. We're just giving them what they need, and so they can, they can cope with all of that. There was lots of other things we did at Cobalt in and around this. We had this new structure. We looked at the cadence. We looked at the order that we were delivering different pieces of information in, whether it was being a written update or a Slack update. And then that same week, we were then delivering things like demos of this new functionality. Then this was coming back into, at certain times of the year, roadmap updates. This was coming into board meetings and things like that. It was restructuring the order that we did these sorts of things in, because this was then starting to look at the repetitiveness of learning and understanding. You don't say things once, you say it 2, 3, 4 times before people really take it on board. By reordering when we were delivering these things and the meetings that we were having, it was all reinforcing very naturally what we were doing. Again, this is not groundbreaking. This is thinking ever so slightly differently. And this is thinking about things like psychology. This is thinking about how people work, how people think, and the way that businesses are structured as well. The end result here was there was a complete transformation in the value that the commercial teams were getting from the product teams, through not just the rewriting of updates, but loads of things in and all around that. And the trust that had been completely eroded between commercial teams and product teams. Rebuilding that trust. They trusted what we were saying. They trusted what was being delivered. They relied upon it. It was embedded into them. They were expecting this information regularly on a good cadence, and it was embedded so much. It was relied upon. It was aiding their role, in what they were doing. And very anecdotally, I had several comments to say, look, this was transformational in the way that they were interacting within the business.
Awesome. Lots of work around communication between products and the rest of the company, and it resonates really with with my own experience. So that's really interesting. I also come from a sales and commercial background, and I've been always focused on breaking silos between product team and having a clear communication and getting clear value of all these updates, feature release that where the product team and the dev team put a lot of work there, obviously, and everyone wants to get the most out of it. So it's really great, and I can really see the value of bringing this meaning and clarity with this the simple framework you just described. This a relationship inside the organization is really interesting. It's one of the main challenge, and stakeholder relationship. As a product person, you don't always have the authority. You still need resources. You still need to work with everyone because you are sitting in the middle, as you said earlier. So how do you approach that as a product consultant? Do you see, is it maybe easier because you come from the outside and you have some more authority? Actually, is it more difficult because you don't have the all the nitty-gritty of what's going on inside the company, and you need to deal with politics and stuff like that? Can you tell us about it?
I'd say for as many advantages as there are also disadvantages, and there are advantages to kind of being brought in. There's a certain amount of expertise that you have, or at the very least assumes you have. So there is a value in listening. The work that I have done over kind of 15 plus years of being in product. I've been there, I've done that. I know every angle that there is to take with product management. And so look, I do know what I'm talking about. So I can bring that experience to the business to understand, look, I know where those gaps will be. You may not even realize where those gaps will be, but I know where they will be, and we will discover those together, business. The key part about this is, look, we're here to help that business with what it's got now. A huge amount of time, particularly in the in the early days and weeks, is going to be about discovery. It's about finding out what the business needs. Well, one business will be heavily focused or have a heavy need on data. Another will be all on kind of quarterly and annual planning and or OKRs, things like that. And that's where they will need the most support. That's where the biggest gaps are. Fantastic. We identify those things, and then we work with those teams to identify what is it we're going to go and do, and literally go and action them from there. Problem solving. What is the problem that you have? So the cooperation of the teams and the wider business, because we don't go and talk to just product and tech people. We want to hear from the rest of the business as well. We don't go in and just help product be as efficient as possible and say, stop the rest of the business. They can now be as inefficient as necessary. It has to work for the business. And do you know what? That means that sometimes things that we will change, things that we will put in place, will mean more work for product people sometimes, and that's very natural. But the net result is a positive one. There's a net positive impact on the whole business by doing some of these things. So there's a huge amount of cooperation that's needed. Again, whether you are a consultant or full-time, you need that support from leadership. They should understand that there is improvements to be made. If leadership don't want change, they're not prepared to put changes in place, they're not prepared to support you with the change. You need that support there to do it. Getting that support, getting that buy-in, particularly if it's not there across leadership. The leadership was much more focused on you can make the changes as long as it doesn't impact on anybody. Well, there is an impact. We need to make changes, and there will be positive ones, but change is change. There is change management that needs to go into this process. And it became incredibly difficult to do anything at that point. It was very much around kind of just keeping everybody happy. Their buy-in is incredibly, important. From a consultative perspective, that can prove difficult. You are being paid quite often by the hour to come in and make these recommendations. But then maybe the implementation of those recommendations is something else entirely. Understanding the culture within the business, takes time.
Go through the discovery phase, get people to agree on the problem we need to solve together. Problem is identified, and leadership agree for change. That's how you get the buy-in. It's great what you point out also about the evolution of how companies are seeing this function. With today, product operations more crucial than ever with this overall ask for increased efficiency.
I can absolutely attest to this. When I was working at Cobalt last year, we had many rounds of redundancies across the year. Unfortunately, I was in the third round where the company went down to basically 2-3 product managers, down from 9. In no way in the world would I imagine you should still keep product operations in that respect. Times are tough. There is a real case to say, look, there's just no value to the role anymore at that point. I know many of my colleagues and peers will not like that, because it is a difficult thing to say. But the reality is, you've got to live in the real world sometimes. It was not going to work. There was going to be no value to what I was doing with such a small team to impact upon. It's almost regressed into startup world, whereby, again, what are you going to actually do and achieve by putting lots of process in place for such a few number of people, particularly when the future and outlook is very different. As you get back to that sort of scale up sort of size business, and larger as well, efficiency is incredibly important. It's not necessarily just about the world we are in, to be as efficient as possible, save money where we can. I mean, of course, that's important. But how do we just enable people to do their best job? Efficiency, process, using the right tools as best as possible. Not only can we do more in the same amount of time, but we can also do better work as well. How are our teams making good use of data? How are our teams being very data informed? Again, in the olden days, what would happen? These product managers would be needing to go and get at this data, slice and dice it, dashboard it all themselves. And that's a huge amount of time, actually, particularly from a standing start. So now what we want is product operations to be helping with this process and just providing this analysis, providing the data to them. So the product manager can then go and use that information. If we're not using that information, we can be making mistakes. We can be making assumptions. We can be going off in a direction that actually is not proven or has no evidence behind it. We're going back to gut feel. And as much as kind of experiencing gut feel has a place, it's a part of the puzzle just as much as data is. So product operations will facilitate that data, but it will also ensure and prompt our teams to be making sure that they're using this as part of the discovery process and their decision-making process as well. We'll be checking up on them to say, have you looked at the data? Does the data actually support this? I fundamentally don't care whether it does or doesn't. I don't care what the data says, but what I am very interested in is, have you looked at this? Have you used this as part of your reason? If you have, and you feel you've made the right decision, absolutely not for me to say yes or no to that. But if you're not, then you're missing a part of the puzzle. You are making assumptions. You need to use that evidence, to move forward. So this is not just about being efficient. This is not about saving money. This is not getting the most value out of things, on that respect. It's about making sure that we are using the right tools to make the right decisions, that we are using tools so that we are being as collaborative as possible, that we are supplying the information to the right people so that they are doing the best job that they can and have the best chance at making sales, putting some absolutely fantastic events on, marketing out the door. We are supporting our customers with absolutely top-notch support people with the right information.
Love it, Graham. Thank you so much. It's really interesting. We coming at the end of the interview, but I wanted to touch on one last question, since you are arguing that it's not necessarily today's problem, but a more global problem that product operation is trying to solve in a company, and I love that. Would you say that despite of this fact, you noticed maybe a trend in terms of which certain type of companies are increasingly seeking for product operation consistency or specialists, now that the need for capital efficiency increased, or and is it going down to the startup stage a bit more than what it was before, or this is not something you are seeing at the moment, and for you that doesn't change too much the landscape?
I think we're still too early, to say anything about that. Product operations is really in the domain of people that are exploring it still right now. There's a huge amount of education that still needs to be done, particularly in Europe. There's a very interesting kind of dichotomy at the moment. The US, particularly on kind of the West Coast, California, Silicon Valley, places like that, seem to be embracing product operations, a fair amount more. There are more roles, there are more companies that are kind of going with this, and also as well seems to be, aligned around kind of the I wouldn't say the right theme, but they're very common, positive themes of product operations. Whereas in Europe, in the UK, it seems to be a little bit more varied in terms of what people want. There are organisations that are calling it product operations, and it's anything but in the definition that we are very quickly becoming, settled on, about what product operations is and also what it isn't. One organisation I was kind of talking to, it was really project management, that they were looking for as part of that. They really didn't grasp what product operations was and how it was going to benefit them. So there's a lot of education that still needs to be done across organisations. And as I say, I think it is very much a case of, people are experimenting with it, where they are kind of, picking up on the right type of roles, the right needs. They are taking it in the right direction, absolutely, and they are making great use of it. I've in my travels and lots of peers that I speak to, not once have I heard anything say, we tried product operations, didn't work for us. Every single time we would not go back. This is adding real value to our teams. It's giving them the space that they need to do their best work with, absolutely, hands down. I think that it's now about kind of doing things like this great interview, podcast, resources, events, things like that, to just understand what it does for businesses. And again, coming back to this idea that, look, product operations is not doing anything new at all. The function has always been there. These things that we do, they are already there. Whether they're being done or not, they are already kind of happening very organically. What product operations do is we'll really polish them, shine them, make them work super fluidly, efficiently, and that is only a benefit to the business. And the investment in having one or a small team product operations is magnified so many times by the efficiency and the outputs that those teams then achieve so very, very quickly. And as well, what businesses are, I guess, sometimes a little bit unsure of is, well, when do we realize that kind of value? There will be very small things that can be improved within the business. There are very large things. There are very large projects that will be undertaken, that need to be undertaken. Product operations very often will, and you'll hear this term quite a lot, is what's the low-hanging fruit? What's the quick wins that we can achieve? But where are those important things that we can do that will just make a little bit of life easier for people, put a little bit of efficiency in place, remove a barrier for somebody, put a little bit of automation in place? Not only does this build trust, it starts to add value to those businesses, but it sets us on a pathway. If we can achieve 5, 6, 7, 8 little quick wins in the same time that actually we need to work on a much bigger project, that likely affects many more people. You get that buy-in. You get that sense that people know what they're doing. That change management piece is very quickly refined and oiled, and people are then much more geared up for those bigger changes that need to come down the line. And in that same time, you've already made stepped improvements. You've already improved people's lives and efficiencies and happiness, and you'd have got that buy-in. Product operations you can be done on its own, but it's so much more effective when you've got people bought in, that people want to help you with these changes around the business, other ops teams, other people at those pointy ends of the business. And if you have that, by building that trust very quickly, not only are you demonstrating that value, but you are adding value in weeks, not years, within a business.
Love it. When you get product operation right, you never go back, and because you've seen too much value, for sure. Love it. And I love that you point out also the need for education. I know that you also have a podcast about product operation with ProdCamp. We are also about to launch Ask Me Anything sessions online for product people. There are more stuff coming, and it's great to see so many people ready to share the experience, their time with everyone else. So thank you so much for your time today, Graham. It was really, really beneficial, really interesting. We touched many topics. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you in another episode real soon.
Lovely. No, thank you so much for listening to me rabble on about my passion project, and I look forward to speaking again soon.